You are welcome back to training videos on the 2020-2029 strategic plan of the PCG. Now, we are continuing with the video on framework for goals and KPIs. We are doing the second video. And like we said, this video will focus on the overarching goals and KPIs, and also the departmental goals and KPIs. We've just dealt with the first one in the first video, understanding the framework of KPIs and of goals and KPIs. And now we are looking at a little more into detail the overarching and the departmental goals and KPIs. So this is a framework that we started with. And then we have overarching goals, then we have KPIs. So we'll look at this, and then we'll also look at this. Overarching goals first. Now, the unique thing about the overarching goals is that the accountable officer, the AO, for the court, is held directly accountable for the overarching goals. They are goals that are not allocated to any specific department or committees. They make inputs for the accountable officer, but there are his goals. There are his primary goals to ensure that they are achieved. And when the departments and the committees do their work, they are also helping him to achieve those goals. He is not able to achieve the goals if he doesn't get the support of his subordinates. But he is directly, these are actions that he has to report on directly, quarterly, and every year. The overarching goals are also mandatory. That means every court will have to undertake the overarching goals. Every court will have to undertake the overarching goals. They are mandatory. You cannot say that I don't have enough resources so I'll not undertake an overarching goal. You have to. If you're a member of the PCG, GAC is saying that these are goals that you cannot run away from as the accountable officer. Now, the national targets for the overarching goals are fixed by the GAC. And when we go to them, you see why they have been fixed by the GAC. Being fixed by the GAC means that what is stated as a national target is not a benchmark. It's something that you must achieve. So you cannot draw your program and say that I'll do worse than what has been put there. You can do better, but not worse. So you cannot alter the national target. The national target should become your own target in your court. So these are the things about the mandatory, but the overarching goals. They are mandatory, their targets are fixed, they cannot be altered by any court. Now, so what are the overarching goals? The first, and probably this is the top one, because that is what Vision 1.5 is about, is to grow the membership of the church by at least 10% per annum. By at least, and the underlining thing is at least. So that means this is fixed, and no court, no congregation, no district, or no presbytery can set itself a target of less than 10% per annum increase in membership for the next up to 2023. So this is a fixed target. The national target is 10% per annum, least minimum 10% per annum, and this is what is consistent with the Vision 1.5, like we've said. So that's the very first one, and is for each of the courts. All the committees and all the departments are supposed to work to achieve this particular goal. And the AO, the accountable officer, is held directly responsible. He has to motivate all the committees and departments to contribute to achieving that. The next three are deadlines for submitting various reports to the higher court. Submitting various reports to the higher court. And you see why the deadlines cannot be shifted, because if you don't submit your report, if the congregation don't submit reports to the district cannot report to the presbytery. If the presbytery don't submit reports to if the district don't submit reports to the presbytery cannot report to GA. So it's in the interest of GA to have timelines on when each of these reports, and so they fixed the targets for them. And the first one is submitting your 3-year rolling plans and your annual quarterly targets. These have been fixed as national targets, and you have to meet them. They are mandatory, and the targets are fixed by GAC. The deadline to submit quarterly reports and deadlines to submit annual reports. If you go to the KPIs, you see what the deadlines actually are. I have not shown them because they are different for each of the courts. I think, yes, they are different for each of the courts. And then there's a fifth common, and this runs for, all these are common for each of the courts. The last one is also a deadline, but it's for undertaking performance appraisal. Performance appraisal is putting the performance management system into operations. That means the MEO owes to account the accountable officer. So there's a deadline annually for doing this. You review the previous years and set targets for the coming year. And this is part of the performance appraisal system for the church. So the deadline for doing that is also set, and I think in this case it's common for everybody. The deadline is that this appraisal should have been done before the close of the year. It should have been done before the close of the year, 31st December of the year. But the GAC has 2 additional goals. So the 5 overarching goals are common for all the 4 courts. But when it comes to GAC, there are 2 additional overarching goals. And both of them are time-bound by 30th September 2020. And I think we are a long way in meeting those things. The GAC adopts a performance management system, PMS, for principal officers, directors, chairpersons of committees, staff of all the courts by 30th September 2020. And already this year, we are doing the performance management system. Targets has been set, and performance agreements have been signed, and the expectation is that by 31st December, evaluations will take place, and reports will be issued, and we'll know how each AO is performing at each level. So the process is already there, and it's being perfected for the coming years, but the system is there already. Now also GAO operationalizes an effective planning, monitoring, and evaluation system for all courts by 30th September. Again, this training we are doing, when we come to the action part where you need to do, you see that these processes have been put in place already, and they are being pushed down to the lower courts for implementation. So these are the 2 additional things that the GAC has to do, and by the close of this year, if they have done it, then they will be equal with the rest of us. It must be emphasized that what makes overarching goals what they are is that the AO for the court is held directly accountable, the goals are mandatory, and the national targets are fixed and cannot be altered. Now let's move to the departmental goals and KPIs. So the departmental goals and KPIs are provided for the 11 committees in the congregation, the 7 committees in the district, and the 7 departments in the presbytery and General Assembly offices. And I think we saw this previously. Now, congregational goals. There are congregational goals for each of the 11 committees in the congregation, as provided for by the Constitution and Manual of Order. And these goals are related directly to the life and ministry of the church on the ground, because that's where the congregations are, that's where the church members are. And the KPIs they generate for us to see how well we do as a church in the life of the ordinary church member and in the life of the ordinary person on the street. The KPIs are collated through the districts and the presbyteries right up to the GA level. So every measurement that we do, every KPI that we measure in the congregations is collated upwards. Except the deadlines that ends just at the district, the rest are collated upwards. Now, the departmental goals also, just like KPI, where we saw additional goals being added at the national level, for the departmental goals also, additional goals can be introduced for the committees or the departments at the higher courts. And again, once introduced, the KPI also collated to the higher courts. So this is also very important. And in the same way, there are national targets for each of the departmental goals. They are provided as benchmarks to guide the courts. So when it comes to the departmental goals, the overarching statement is that there are benchmarks to guide the courts, except that for some of them, those determined to be fixed by the GAC. So the GAC may pick a few national targets and say, this ones, their targets, for these goals, the targets are fixed, they are mandatory, and they are fixed. Now, what we will do now will be to navigate through the framework for additional insight. So we'll go into the Excel sheet. Okay, so we've gone through to the Excel sheet, and this you can find online for each of the courts. I have it here for congregation, districts, presbyteries, and GAO in this sheet of mine. So let's go through the one for the congregations. And as we go through, I'll make reference to the other courts. So you see that for the congregations, the first set of goals we have is what we call the overarching goals. And as you can see, we have it for all the 11 committees of the congregation, going right down to number 12 here. So this is 11th committee, because the overarching is named 1, so we see it as ending on 12. So let's walk through them a little bit. And you see the first one, the first overarching goal that we already discussed, we said that is grow the church membership by at least 10% per annum. The national target is 10% year on year. And the key performance indicator is the number of members that we have. So every year we have to collect that number and compare to each other to see whether we are getting the 10% growth. And like we said already, this is consistent with the Vision 1.5. And then the 3 reports that you're supposed to submit. So in this case, the congregational TYRP and AQT is submitted to the district minister. He's an MEO, and the indication that this job has been done is when this is submitted to him. The deadline is 30th September. This is fixed, cannot be changed. And all you are supposed to do, your key performance indicator, is that you are supposed to meet this deadline. It's mandatory and fixed. And it's different for each of the courts. So if you go, for instance, to the district, you see that the same thing is 15th October. If you go to presbytery, you see that the same thing is 31st October. And if you go to GAO, it's 15th November. So each of the courts is given 14 days or 15 days to be able to collate and also report. And then there are quarterly reports, which are submitted 14 days, 21 days by the district, and 28 days by the presbytery. And in the same way, annual reports by 31st October, we expect that the congregations will submit their reports. It's not the end of the year yet, but that's how we do it because congressional conferences take place in district sessions take place in November. So normally by the end of October, you expect that the district congressional reports will be ready. But when it comes to the districts, you will see that the district's annual reports are targeted at 31st January. The district reports are from January to December. January to December. The congressional reports normally will cover a period between September to August, or probably October to September, whichever way the Presbytery decides. But when the district is doing its annual report, you have to update some of the numbers so that they are annual, January to December, because that's how the national takes its data. So when we are doing membership, it's January to December. So appraise and set performance targets for agents, committee chairpersons. That's the last action, and it's 31st December for all. Now, when you go to mission goals, I won't go through all of them, but just for some of them, you have this available. You can look at them, and if you have questions, you can ask. It says win souls for Christ. And the target is that you should be doing an equivalent of 20% of your previous year's membership. So if in 2019, your membership is 200, and then you are setting target for 2019, your number is 200, then you are setting target for 2020, then it's talking about 20% of 200, which is 40. So you should at least be winning 40 souls. This goal is mandatory, as you can see in the notes. And it's motivated by the one member, one soul agenda. Note, souls won for Christ is not the same as growth in membership. This is very important. So what we are saying is that it's possible that you can go on a soul winning spree and actually win souls for Christ, but it's not practical for the people to come and join your congregation. Your job would then be to help them integrate into a Christ-centered, a Bible-believing church so that they can move on with their life. But you can record in your church records that you won that soul. You can go on evangelism outside you can go and help another district undertake evangelism. And when souls are won, you can say that it's through our program that we won these souls. Yes, it's through your program that those souls were won, and you can account for it in your records. Though some of those members will never come and join your church. They may join the Presbytery church somewhere else, and they will see it as membership increase. So winning of souls is for Christ, and we must go ahead and do it. And the church says that every year, each one of us, every 5 of us must account for one soul won. And of course, taking mission activities is neither mandatory nor a fixed target. This one, this action is mandatory, but the target is not fixed because you have to plan your soul winning. So there are some people who can do a lot more than 20%, and there are some people who are just not in the position to do the 20%. So you pace yourself to the using this as the 20% as a benchmark. This is a situation in which the 20% is a benchmark. In terms of membership, the 10% is not a benchmark; it's fixed. So these are the differences. So the same way we go through all the other committees. Committee on Administration deals with training, leadership, agents training, and staff training. And one important element of this is the Rulebook, because if the Rulebook is kept properly, then we can account for our membership under very, very much. So this target is mandatory. This target is mandatory. Everybody will have to make sure that you have a Rulebook which is quarterly updated. And then as we go through, internet connectivity, ICT is becoming important because these days we are doing a lot of things remote. Committee on Fiscal Development, both objectives here, goals here are mandatory. Registration of land is mandatory, and also insurance of land is mandatory. So no congregation can say, I'm not going to insure my properties. Economical and social relations, there are no mandatory or fixed goals there. Development and social services, the first goal is healthy living, sanitation, and care for the environment is mandatory. Sanitation is such a big problem for us. The GAC thinks that this is mandatory. You come to welfare, having a welfare system to take care of your members, funerals, outdoorings, weddings, and helping people who are in distress in one form or the other, they are all mandatory for us. Every congregation should have a program according to your ability. The financial goals are mandatory, submitting an audited account, and it's also fixed. 31st December is a fixed mandate. You cannot change that. The expenditure on missions and evangelism is mandatory. 15% national target. It's what do you call it? It's a benchmark for us. So they are no mandatory for education, but they are important. They are scholarships. They are no mandatory, but they are important. Church life and nurture. Increased attendance to church service. Increased attendance to group meetings. These are new measures, things that we are measuring, and we should follow. And we should expect these numbers to grow faster than the church itself is growing. So if your church is growing at 10%, they're saying attendance to church should grow, attendance to meetings should grow faster than your church growth. And then also there's one other interesting one, increased participation in soul winning. We should be encouraging our members, while they mature as Christians, to provide service and be involved in soul winning. And then also there's training for leadership training. So then there's counseling, which is the last one, and these are all very important elements that we have to take account of. So as you can see, this is a walk through the congregational goals and KPIs, and it's important that we all pay attention to these things. Basically, this is the end of this video, and I hope it was useful. It's so important. It's the foundation for moving forward, foundation for translating the strategic plan into actionable areas for each of the courts of the church. So I think this is very important, and when we go to the next videos, you will see how these translations can be done.